right. So today's project is going to be pretty cool. Super happy with the way this thing turned out. I think this is the 8th video in the series about the bike build. And you'll notice that the first clips here are of old-time lights. That's the one I built. And a lot of these very early lights were actually carbide lamps, coal miners and people like that used to use back in the day. And the early bicyclists and early motorcyclists, just mounted those carbide lights that the miners and stuff used to use on the front of their bikes. So I'm super happy with this project. I am turning this just very common free. It was actually free. They used to give it to you for free at Harbor Freight when you went in and made some kind of purchase. But otherwise, I think they sell them for, I don't know, $1 or $2, something like that. They're everywhere. I have, I don't know, a dozen of these things. So this is just a little light, a little LED light that operates off of 3 batteries. And it is actually pretty durable and does a really good job casting light. So I thought this would be a really good thing to use for the front of the historical bike front light there, the carbide light. So pretty easy to take apart. They're just small little screws. You might need like a little screwdriver set, but you have to take that back off anyway in order to change the batteries. So I just wanted to explore in here and take it completely apart because I am going to be making some holes in here with the drill. And I wanted to see where the electronics were and where the batteries came in and where there was a void, that kind of thing, before I started drilling the holes. So that's the purpose of taking it apart. And anyhow, so this front carbide light, my grandfather actually worked in the coal mines in West Virginia. So not only is this little project here, part of the historical bike build that's going to go on the front of my bike that I'm currently building. Also has kind of like a, I don't know, sentimental attachment to it, which I thought was pretty cool. Maybe you guys can relate to that. But again, these things on the inside of this little light are just screwed together. It's very, very, very inexpensive construction. They have a little teeny tiny circuit board, and they actually hardwired the front little LED light to the circuit board where the on-off switch is, and then just with a little red and black wire over to the main one. So that little teeny tiny light right there, I'm not really going to use that too much, but I'm not going to take it apart just because it does work well, and there's really no reason. I don't want to have some kind of accident with the circuit board. So I'm just going to leave that intact, and we're going to move on to making the body and a shroud for this thing, because right now it's obviously very ugly, blue, looks like it's made from China, and we need to make it look like it's kind of antique-y and almost kind of steampunk. So I also had a stock carburetor that came with my 80cc bike build, and I was not happy with it. It gummed up. It did not work well, so I replaced it with an aftermarket one. So I have this just in my little pile of junk, this standard carburetor. If you don't have one sitting around, or if you don't want to swap yours out for a better one, you can get them on Amazon for, I think, under $15 or so if you want to go with this type of build. But if not, find something else, and this method can work for you too. I just thought it was really cool to reuse this carburetor. So right now I'm just kind of like looking to see where the placement would fit, and I'm just playing around with it, turning it upside down and that kind of stuff. And I'm happy with the way the general fit is right here. So I'm just taking and making a little bit of a mark, because we're going to make 2 holes here, and we're going to be installing this with rivets. So a couple little pilot screws here to make room for the rivet. And whenever I'm doing anything like this, it's kind of a custom fit. I like to, if there's a couple screws or bolts or whatever that you're drilling a hole for, I like to do, the first one and then line up whatever needs to be attached on there so it looks good and you know exactly where that hole is. I can't stand when something's off a little bit and is cockeyed, so that's the little method I use there. And so these are just, very common rivets. I have a multi-pack. That rivet is a little bit longer because you're, going through a little bit more depth there. But this is just a very easy to use, common rivet gun, and it comes with, several different sizes of rivets with it in the pack. Just got it at Harbor Freight, and as a matter of fact, I probably got that free light when I bought it. But these rivets come in handy, and if you've never used them, they're pretty easy to use. You just make a hole, put the rivet through, and then that gun pulls through that little tab and actually smushes the other side. So I was a little concerned because this is plastic and there has to be enough resistance on the other side of the rivet. If there's something that's too soft, like it doesn't work like with OSB or something, the OSB just doesn't have enough rigidity to it. It's not hard enough to make the rivet smush on the other side and be able to hold. But anyhow, this is relatively inexpensive, and I chose rivets over screws because I just thought it would be a little bit more appropriate for that kind of like the steampunk look or the historical carbide lamp look that I'm going for. They used a lot of rivets back then for some reason. I don't know, even like with building skyscrapers and stuff. But okay, so we mounted the existing carburetor on there with rivets, and then I'm just using the two existing little screws and to put the housing back together on the light assembly itself, and that way I can still get in there and change the batteries, because the batteries will die every once in a while. So for the housing on here, I wanted to go with this metal look. I'm just using a piece of scrap, very common metal for ductwork that I had sitting around in my pile, and just cut like a little 1.25 inch strip or something like that, and just generally just bent it around the light. And I'm using some duct tape here, or masking tape rather, because I got to drill a few holes in here in order to attach the light assembly to the shroud. So just being really careful with the drill bits, and you want to get the drill bit size that matches the rivet size, and just drill through. And that's why I took it apart before. I wanted to know where the electronics were in there, so I knew I was going to be drilling holes. I didn't want to drill into something that was important and ruin the light. So you want to make these holes nice and snug. If you have a problem pushing these little rivets in there, you can get just a little other earthen bracket or whatever, a little prod or probe, and kind of expand it in there just a little bit. But it's good if it's nice and snug. A good nice snug is really important for rivets, rivets, not rivets. It's important for the other end of the rivets to have something to bite into on the other end that you don't see. So the smushed end on the inside, because it makes like a pincer move. It sandwiches those two materials together by literally pulling and mushing that other side into kind of like a mushroom on the inside of that blue plastic there, and that acts as how it's connected. So you can see there on the rivet, it's long and cylindrical, and then when you apply this gun to it, literally you're just pulling that pin through, and that pin smushes the other side of the rivet on the inside of the light or whatever you're trying to rivet together, and that's what creates the bond. So it won't pull through that smaller hole anymore because the other side is mushroomed out. So, I'm testing this every once in a while, but looking super cool already. I love that rivet look. Um, and I wanted to add just another little kind of like cap to the front, kind of like a visor type of thing. And I'm just, again, I'm using the length of the same piece of ductwork tin that I already cut, and just, fooling around and bending it with my hand, my fingers to make it fit, and then just taking a Sharpie, and I'm going to outline where I think it would just look good. A lot of this is just your personal preference for this little kind of like lid or a little visor, I guess you might call it. Give it a little bit more, better profile. And I'm just freehanding it. There really is no, reason or whatever. I think it would look good this way. I guess you could make a straight line if you wanted to, if you're going for more angular look or something. But I did want to make it look, period, so it would be reminiscent of a historical time frame. So I decided to go with this little scallop look right here. But super easy. All my projects here that I put up here, for the most part, there will be some later that involve more expensive tools and stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of these projects that I do are just completely inexpensive projects with stuff that you can readily have available around. I had this tin sitting around. It's very common. If you didn't have this ductwork tin, I was thinking about making this out of a soda can, or if you're from a different part of the country, a pop can, aluminum. I decided not to do that because I wanted to make it a little bit more rigid. But you could, make it out of just an aluminum, soda can that's empty, and do it inside out, so the silver part is out. But if you don't have that ductwork sitting around, if you want to make it out of the ductwork stuff, you can just go to Home Depot and buy a sheet. It's not expensive at all. But look how cool this looks so far. So I love the rivets, love that little the shroud, and then the visor on top. And I love that old, broken down, used, junky carburetor look too. I think it makes it look really cool. I mean, you might even think like it has a reservoir of kerosene or carbide or whatever that they were, using back in the day. So here's the finished product. I did shoot the blue part of the plastic with some silver spray paint that we had in just in our stock of spray paint. Pretty inexpensive, and it's just a silver metallic, just to cover up the blue part of the plasticky. But look how nice this looks. I mean, completely free for the most part. That light was free from Harbor Freight. The carburetor was junky, did not work anymore. It was all gummed up and didn't work very well anyway, to be honest with you. And there's the inspiration that we used. So I hope you like this. It's going to go on the front of the bike, and I'll show it later also when it's fully installed. Please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps out. Thanks.